I think it's going to connect TradFi and transform DeFi. So that's our slogan right now: connecting TradFi, transforming DeFi. So, but before I begin talking about what MarginX is, what I would like to go through, possibly a lot of you already know, but just in case you don't already know, and also it's also interesting to just do a quick recap on what are the challenges that we face in DeFi. So DeFi, if you don't already know, is decentralized finance, and basically I think the losers or the most generic definition of DeFi is that it's a delivery of financial services without any centralized intermediaries using features of blockchain technologies. So what are the key features of a DeFi? Key features of DeFi is that services are provided through the use of smart contracts. That's number one. Number two, rules are set by developers and or by a governance framework. And number three, assets are held directly by the users themselves. Now, as I proceed with my presentation later on, you will realize something that's very interesting. Despite the fact that these are the key features of DeFi, a lot of DeFis in the market right now do not provide all three of these features at the same time. So let's look at the opportunities. Why are people interested in DeFi? It's because using DeFi, we have a reduced transaction cost and friction through the removal of intermediaries. And there's also increased transparency and security through blockchain technologies. What that really means is that blockchain inherently is secure, and it's also inherently transparent because it's a publicly distributed ledger, which basically means that everything that you have transacted or wish to transact will be recorded clearly on the blockchain. But there are some challenges with DeFi, as we shall see later. One of the key challenges we face there is that there's limited throughput, high gas fee, and scalability. Now, for those people who are very, if you might read between the lines, and you might realize that it's a bit ironic. Why do I say that? It's because one of the key features of DeFi is reduce transaction costs, but yet one of the key challenges here is that we have high gas fees. And this is really very clear when it comes to certain decentralized exchange platforms, as I will explain later. And I will also explain how MarginX actually overcome this problem and provide a truly decentralized DeFi solution. But first, I just would like to blow a bit of not exactly my trumpet, but blow the trumpet for DeFi. Is that you can see that the global DeFi market size is valued at about USD 12 billion in 2021, and approximately 1/6 of that is due to DEX. Right? The market size is expected to expand at a compound CAGR rate of 42.5% from 2022 up to 2030. And that's despite what has happened throughout this year, which a lot of people are saying is a crypto winter. And we can still see that DeFi is a aggressively growing area, including DEX. But just a quick recap, what's the difference between SEX, centralized exchange, and DEX? In a centralized exchange, you have a lot of people, let's say, doing trades. But no matter it's people A here or people B here who's doing trades, their money, their transactions, their orders all go through a centralized organization, right? But in the case of DEX, it's a true peer-to-peer trading or exchange platform. Basically, that means that there's no central person, entity, or intermediary that decides how you should trade this. You do not pass the money to someone else, and that someone else passes the money. So, for example, if you try to buy an asset, you basically put the money into a third party. That third party will then transfer the asset and then sell that asset to the person that you want to sell to. But in DEX, that doesn't happen. In DEX, it's a true peer-to-peer situation, which means that if I want to buy an asset, if you want to sell an asset, our money should just exchange, and the asset will also exchange and take place immediately. That shouldn't go through a third party at all. Now, I've got this through one of these sources here, and it's very interesting to note that in just 2021 alone, the total trading volume of major DEXs running on Ethereum blockchain has actually increased in almost six-fold, right? From 110 billion to 620 billion. And the reason why I mention this is that a lot of people talk about why talk about DeFi and why we talk about DEX. As I mentioned before, DeFi and DEX is a rapidly growing part of the blockchain space, blockchain sphere. And I believe that there's ample space more to grow when it comes to talk about DeFi and DEX. There are a lot of space. A lot of people is saying that, we already got a DEX. Why are you still being DEX? There are a lot of DeFi products already available. Why are you still being DeFi solutions? The fact is that there are still a lot of challenges and there's still a lot of products out there waiting for everyone to develop. And it's also very interesting to note that it's not always the best to be the fastest, the best, the largest trading volume DeFi or DEX that you have out there. Because you can create a DEX or DeFi solutions for people who prefer a more secure channel. It might be a bit slower, but it's more secure, for example. It might be a bit slower, but it's more transparent. Or the other way around. Yes, it's less secure, but it's very fast. So this will cater for different kinds of audience or consumers, right? Because everyone will have a different requirement for DeFi. So what I'm basically trying to say here is that in a summary, my first few slides, I'm just trying to say that DeFi and DEX in particular is a fast-growing area in the blockchain sphere. And there are just a lot of different consumer requirements. Do not focus purely on just the biggest, fastest. There are a lot of other consumers who want other features, security, transparency. So one key question I always ask is that how decentralized are you? Now, today here in this Singapore Fintech Festival, you will come across a lot of different companies, different products, and more often than not, all of them would say that they're decentralized. But one very important question for you to ask them is how decentralized are you, right? Because everyone says they're decentralized, but a product consists of many, many components. And the reality is that not every component is decentralized. All can be decentralized, right? A lot of the products out there, like DYDX, they claim to be a decentralized exchange, but the fact is they are using a custodial third-party wallet. So they're not really fully decentralized. A lot of the DEX out there, they say they're decentralized, but they're using an off-chain order book. So they're not truly decentralized as well. So if you go to the chart here, the first question you need to ask is that, is there any mediation required for your transaction? If there isn't, well, you know what? You're not really truly decentralized because you're using an off-chain order matching system. The next question, if they say yes, then next question you ask them, is the settlement done on blockchain? Again, you will find that a lot of the DEXs out there, the answer to that question is no. Off-chain fund settlement mechanism instead of on-chain. Following this flow, the third question you can ask that, are assets unilaterally moved by a third party? So that was the point I made earlier. Is this a custodial or a non-custodial wallet? Again, you will find that many people, including the very popular DEX, DYDX, they actually use a third-party managed custodial wallets. So again, they're not truly decentralized. Now, last but not least, do they have a collective governance? Do they have a collective framework where they have a voting system, where the community can actually decide what to be put onto the trading exchange platform, what kind of features you should be added to that? Again, you will find that in most situations, more often than not, that is not decided by you, not decided by the community. It is decided by the developers, and the developers wants to have Bitcoin or Ethereum on their exchange, so be it. But a truly decentralized product would resemble something like a DAO, right? Where the developers will just hands off and then the community will just drive it mostly, right? That is, so if the answer to all these questions is yes, 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 then you have a fully decentralized product. Again, there are reasons why certain things cannot be fully decentralized. I totally admit that. Certain things, we want it to be centralized so that it's more efficient, it's faster. But like I said, I think in the whole blockchain sphere, there are parts of consumer that is true to the Satoshi idea, right? The purists, what we call them. And here at MarginX, we are part of that purist as well. We believe that, we believe in building something that's truly decentralized. We want to provide all these features for people, right? That are truly decentralized. There are some additional challenges, as I mentioned. Maybe the fees are a bit higher, maybe it's a bit slower. But as I mentioned to you, we have worked out through all these challenges and actually come up with the architecture that solve this problem, or at least minimize all these challenges. So as I mentioned, MarginX is, as a decentralized platform, we offer the following: on-chain order matching, on-chain fund settlement, non-custodial wallets, collective governance. Every aspect of this MarginX is decentralized. And very important is that we're offering this security and transparency of blockchain technology, but with the experience which is very, very close to a centralized exchange. We have tested it over a few weeks, and we are really amazed by the fact that there's literally not much difference between our DEX and SEX that you can mention of, like Binance, for example. So our booth is just over there. So if you guys want to experience more about our solutions and how we can actually build this, drop by our booth right there in front. Now, here is a very important slide. So how do we actually do this, right? As I mentioned to you before, to offer you this fully decentralized experience, there are a lot of challenges. The main ones being the fees are going to be higher, and as well as the throughput is going to get slower. It's going to get congested as more and more people come in to your DeFi product, right? Or in the DEX in that case. One solution that we use is called a multi-chain architecture. So with a multi-chain architecture, instead of the traditional one chain fits everything, right? Basically, each of our trading pairs are actually built on a sub-chain. So each of these chain acts independently, but as well, they also communicate with each other as well. So in this sense, we can actually distribute the load and make the congestion as minimal as possible. And because of this multi-chain architecture, the transfer of asset from one to another is within an internal environment, you could say. And that basically means that fees are also significantly much lower. So through the use of this multi-chain architecture, we really can actually offer you a solution with a high throughput, low fees, and also it's scalable, because if you want to increase the capacity or the capability of this of our chain, what we need to do is just to create more subnets and add on more chains, sub-chains to this multi-chain architecture, and we will actually achieve that. But we don't. I've been given a lot of example on decentralized exchange so far, but we want to be seen as more than just a trading platform, right? Now I talk about TradeFi, DeFi. So for the uninitiated, DeFi is decentralized finance, TradeFi is traditional finance. For all the talk that we have about TradeFi and DeFi, we have to admit that TradeFi and DeFi are largely isolated. Actually, a lot of those traditional traders, they do not come into the crypto space. They still view us with a lot of skepticism. And I think, as I mentioned to you, like MarginX wants to be more than just a trading platform. We want to be able to actually bridge these two worlds together. And how do we do that? Now, MarginX is not just a decentralized exchange, because MarginX is also a platform where you can bring in derivative products from traditional finance into the DeFi space. Anything that can be built using a smart contract can be transformed into a product and being placed on our MarginX and being traded upon, right? And if you expand that idea, it's not just derivative products such as stocks, for example, perpetual stocks, but it also could be insurance products. It also potentially could be a token that you think can fluctuate with the value based on the Oracle price. Anything that our community can think of, MarginX wants to be the platform to enable you to trade it, to exchange the value on our platform. Now, as I promised you as well, that to be truly decentralized, you also need to have a collective governance. What that means is that you have to be, as a developer, once you have built the platform, built the rules, we have to be able to let our hands go. You need to let the community do the work. So we're proud to say at MarginX, we are for the community, by the community, right? The ideal decentralized platform is both fair and trustless. So we do believe that the policies and the future development of MarginX should depend on the communities more so rather than depending on us. So as a summary, I just like to say that I want to view. I mentioned a lot of things about the challenges about DeFi and how at MarginX we try to solve this problem through a multi-chain architecture, as well as mentioned that the fact that at MarginX we want to build a product that's truly decentralized from every component as much as we can. So as a summary, I just want to say that we want to view MarginX as a solution provider. We want to connect the TradeFi, we want to transform the DeFi, and the way we do that is through a multi-chain architecture, providing high throughput, low gas fee DeFi solutions. We want to ensure and guarantee it's a peer-to-peer transaction, right? We want to make sure that any fund settlement, any transaction is done transparently and securely on chain. And we want to also provide that opportunity like for anyone in our community to add in any smart contract derivative products from the TradeFi. We want to make sure that if it's a compatible smart contract product, it can be built on and can be traded on MarginX. And finally, last but not least, we also want to make sure that it's a truly decentralized product by having a collective governance, meaning the community will actually help us develop and build and decide the future direction of how MarginX would evolve over the next few years. So I very quickly go through what MarginX is. My colleagues will still also give a few more talks tomorrow as well. So as well as our booth is right in front there. So feel free to ask us any questions if you have and drop by our booth in front. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you. And yeah, hope to see you guys in our booth. Thank you.